I watched my son Jason slide that wedding band onto Melissa's finger, and I made a choice that probably saved everything I had built over 40 years. I did not mention that I owned Mitchell Construction. I did not tell anyone at that reception that the company where Jason worked as a project manager was actually mine. I just smiled, toasted the happy couple, and kept my mouth shut. That was 3 years ago. Thank God I did. My name is Robert Mitchell. I am 64 years old, and I have been in the construction business since I was 19. Started as a laborer, worked my way up to foreman, then superintendent, and finally started my own company when I was 32. Mitchell Construction. We build commercial properties, office buildings, retail centers, medical facilities. Good, solid work, the kind that lasts. When my wife Linda died 6 years ago, I threw myself into the business even harder than before. Jason had been working for me since college, learning the trade from the ground up just like I did. He was good at it too. Detail-oriented, respected by the crews, understood the technical side. I was proud of him. The plan was always that he would take over someday. But I never put that in writing. Never made it official. Just kept it between us. Then he met Melissa at some charity event in downtown Portland. She worked in marketing for a tech startup. Beautiful girl, confident, always dressed like she stepped out of a magazine. They dated for about 8 months before Jason came to me one evening after work. "Dad, I am going to ask Melissa to marry me." I was standing at my workbench in the garage, organizing tools. I put down the wrench I was holding and looked at him. That is a big step, I know, but she is the one. I can feel it. I wanted to be happy for him. I wanted to tell him, congratulations, and welcome her into the family with open arms. But something in my gut twisted. I had only met Melissa 3 times. She was pleasant enough, but there was something about the way her eyes moved around our house that first time Jason brought her over, like she was taking inventory. "Have you talked about what you both want? Long term?" "We have. She wants kids eventually. So do I. We both want to build something together." "Build something together." I nodded slowly. "And she knows what you do? That you work in construction?" "Yeah, Dad. She knows I am a project manager at Mitchell Construction. But does she know? Does she know what?" I almost told him right there. Almost said that Mitchell Construction was not just where he worked. It was his future, his inheritance, his legacy. But something stopped me. That same gut feeling. "Never mind. Just make sure you two talk about everything before you make it permanent." They got engaged 2 months later. The wedding was set for the following spring. During the engagement period, I got to know Melissa better. Or at least, I thought I did. She was always polite to me, always asked about my day, always thanked me for helping with wedding expenses. But I started noticing little things. The way she would scroll through her phone when Jason talked about work. The way she would change the subject whenever he brought up long-term plans for his career. The way her face would light up when she talked about her friends' husbands who worked in tech or finance, but glaze over when Jason mentioned a successful project we had just completed. At the rehearsal dinner, her father pulled me aside. Richard Sterling, investment banker type, expensive suit, expensive watch, expensive smile. "Robert, Jason tells me you have been in construction for quite some time. 45 years. Impressive. You must have built up quite a nest egg. Do you own your own business? Or do you work for one of the larger firms?" I took a sip of my drink. "I work for Mitchell Construction." "Ah. And you are a foreman there? Superintendent?" "I oversee operations." He nodded, already losing interest. "Well, that is solid work. Honest work. Jason seems to have inherited your work ethic." I smiled and said nothing. The wedding was beautiful. 200 guests, waterfront venue, live band. I wrote a check that made my accountant wince. But Jason was my only child. I would have given him anything. I walked around that reception watching my son dance with his new wife. And I felt that knot in my stomach tighten. My business partner Frank found me near the bar. Frank had been with me since the beginning, owned 15% of the company, handled most of the financial side while I dealt with operations. You ever going to tell that boy the truth? Frank asked quietly. Not yet. Why not? Because I want to see what happens first. Frank looked at me for a long moment, then shrugged. Your call, boss. But you are playing with fire. Maybe I was. But my instincts had kept me alive in this business for 4 decades. And right now, every instinct I had was screaming at me to wait. The first 6 months after the wedding were fine. Jason and Melissa moved into a nice condo in the Pearl District. They seemed happy. I saw them for dinner once a week, usually on Sundays. Melissa would talk about her job, her friends, their plans to travel. Jason would talk about current projects. I would listen and nod and ask questions, playing the role of the simple working man who was just glad his son had a good job. Then, about 8 months after the wedding, things started to shift. It was a Sunday dinner at their place. Melissa had made salmon and roasted vegetables. We were sitting at their dining table, and she was scrolling through her phone while Jason talked about the medical complex we were building in Beaverton. The foundation work was tricky because of the soil conditions, but we brought in a geotechnical engineer and solved it. Should be framing by next month. Melissa looked up. How long does a project like that take? About 18 months, from breaking ground to completion. And how much does Mitchell Construction make on something like that? Jason blinked. I do not really know the exact numbers. I handle the project management side, not the business side. But you must have some idea. Millions, right? It is a big project. So yeah, probably. She set down her fork. Do you think you will ever move up in the company? Like, actually be in charge instead of just managing individual projects? I mean, that is the eventual plan. Dad has always said. Your dad is what? 63? 64? How much longer is he going to work? I felt Jason's eyes flick to me, then back to Melissa. Dad is still sharp as ever. He is not going anywhere anytime soon, but eventually he will retire. And then what? Does Mitchell promote from within? Or do they bring in outside people for the top positions? I do not know. We have not really discussed it. Melissa picked up her wine glass. Maybe you should. You have been there for 12 years, Jason. You should know where you stand. The conversation moved on, but I filed that exchange away in my mind. The way she had talked about me like I was some obstacle that needed to be removed. The way she measured my son's career purely in financial terms. The way she had said Dad is still sharp as ever with just a hint of skepticism. 2 weeks later, Jason called me after work. Hey Dad, can Melissa and I take you to lunch tomorrow? She wants to talk to you about something. What about? I am not sure. She just said she had some questions about the construction business. Warning bells went off in my head. Sure. Where do you want to meet? We met at a brew pub in Northwest Portland. Melissa showed up in a business suit, carrying a leather portfolio. She hugged me, ordered a salad, then got straight to business. Robert, I have been thinking a lot about Jason's career trajectory. He has been at Mitchell Construction for 12 years, and I think it is time for him to start positioning himself for ownership or partnership. I wanted to get your perspective as someone who has been in the industry for so long. I cut into my burger slowly. What specifically did you want to know? How does someone typically become a partner in a construction firm? Is it about bringing in clients, equity investment, years of service? It depends on the company. Right. But at Mitchell specifically, how is it structured? Who owns it? Is it privately held or corporate? Jason shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Melissa, I told you I do not know all the details. Well, Robert would know. Right, Robert? She smiled at me, pen poised over her notepad. I took a bite of my burger, chewed slowly, swallowed. Mitchell. Construction is privately held. The ownership structure is not public information. But you have been there since Jason was a kid, right? You must know who owns it. I know the owners. Yes. And would they be open to bringing in a new partner? Someone like Jason, who has proven himself. That would depend on a lot of factors. She leaned forward. Like what? Like whether the current ownership structure is working for them. Like whether they need additional capital. Like whether they are planning to expand or stay at current size. like whether they trust the potential new partner. Jason has been there for 12 years. If they do not trust him by now, trust is not just about years of service, I said quietly. It is about judgment, about understanding what matters, about loyalty. Something flickered across her face, too quick to fully read. Of course, I just think Jason deserves to know where he stands. He works so hard, and I want to make sure he is building towards something concrete, Not just spinning his wheels. Jason finally spoke up. I am not spinning my wheels, Melissa. I love my job. I know you do, honey. But love does not pay for the life we want to build. You are 34. We need to start thinking strategically. The lunch ended cordially enough, but I left with that knot in my stomach pulled even tighter. Over the next few months, the questions kept coming. Always from Melissa. Usually with Jason present but uncomfortable. How much was Mitchell Construction worth? Who would inherit it if something happened to the owners? What was the company's annual revenue? Did they have any debt? What properties did they own versus lease? I answered everything vaguely, non-committally. I could see Jason getting more and more embarrassed by his wife's aggressive curiosity, but I could also see that he was starting to ask himself the same questions. Then, about 14 months after the wedding, Melissa made her big move. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was at my house, the same house where Linda and I had raised Jason, working on some paperwork in my home office. The doorbell rang. I opened it to find Melissa standing there alone. Hi, Robert. Do you have a few minutes? I wanted to talk to you about something important. I let her in, made coffee. We sat in the living room where I had taught Jason to play chess, where Linda had hosted dozens of dinner parties, where we had decorated Christmas trees and celebrated birthdays and mourned losses. Melissa set down her coffee cup and pulled out her phone. I am just going to be direct with you, Robert, because I respect you and I think you respect me. I said nothing. I have been doing some research. Mitchell Construction has been building in the Portland metro area for 32 years. You have been there for Jason's entire career, and probably longer. The company has a stellar reputation, consistent revenue, owns its own equipment and yard, and carries minimal debt. It is worth somewhere between $15 and $25 million. She paused, watching my face. I kept it neutral. Now, Jason makes $85,000 a year as a project manager. That is good money. Do not get me wrong. But it is not ownership money. It is not legacy money. And frankly, Robert, you are not getting any younger. You are 64. Most men your age are thinking about retirement, about traveling, about enjoying their golden years, but you are still out there every day, managing crews and dealing with contractors and handling stress that would break men half your age. I like my work, I said simply. I am sure you do. But here is what I am thinking. What if there was a way for you to step back and actually enjoy your retirement while also setting Jason up for life? What if Mitchell Construction could be sold to a larger firm, one of the big regional players, and you could walk away with enough money to do whatever you want for the rest of your life? There it was. The real question, the real agenda. What makes you think Mitchell Construction is for sale? Everything is for sale at the right price. And I have been putting out feelers. There is a firm based in Seattle, PacWest Development, that has been looking to expand into the Portland market. They acquire established local companies, keep the brand and the key employees, provide capital for growth. I had a preliminary conversation with one of their acquisition managers. They would be very interested in Mitchell. I took a sip of my coffee. You had a conversation with them, just exploratory. But Robert, they are talking about a number in the 20 million range. Even after taxes and transaction costs, you would walk away with enough to live very comfortably, and Jason would have a guaranteed position in the merged company, probably at a higher salary. It is a win-win. Except, I do not own Mitchell Construction. She smiled. But you know who does, and you clearly have influence there. Jason says you basically run the place. So, talk to the owners, present the opportunity, help them see that this is the smart move. And if they are not interested in selling, her smile tightened just slightly. Then I guess we all need to start thinking about Plan B. What is plan B? Jason finding a position somewhere that actually has room for advancement. Somewhere that values his skills and is willing to make him a partner. He has headhunters reaching out to him all the time. Maybe it is time he started taking those calls seriously. I set down my coffee cup. Does Jason know you are here? Not specifically, but he knows I am trying to help secure our future. He wants the same things I want. Robert. A nice house. Kids in good schools. Financial security. The life he deserves after working so hard. And you think the way to get that is to sell Mitchell Construction. I think the way to get that is to be strategic. To recognize opportunities. To not let loyalty to some company blind us to better options. Some company. That was how she saw it. Not as a legacy. Not as something built with sweat and sacrifice. Not as a community of workers who depended on steady paychecks and good leadership. Just some company. I stood up. I appreciate you coming by, Melissa. But I do not think the owners of Mitchell Construction are interested in selling, and I do not think they would appreciate someone shopping them around without permission. She stood too, smoothing her skirt. I understand. But Robert, times change. Companies change. People retire. Just think about it. For Jason's sake. After she left, I sat in my living room for a long time, staring at the family photos on the wall. Jason as a little boy in a hard hat, standing next to me on a job site. Jason graduating from college. Jason and Linda and me at Christmas. Then I called Frank. We have a problem. I told him everything. He listened in silence, then let out a low whistle. What do you want to do? I want to see how far she is willing to go. You know this could blow up in your face, right? Jason is going to find out eventually that you own the company. If you wait too long, he is going to be pissed that you kept it from him. I know. But I need to know if she is who I think she is. And I need Jason to see it for himself. All right. How do you want to play it? Set up a meeting. Tell her that the owners of Mitchell Construction are willing to hear her out. Frank was quiet for a moment. You are playing a dangerous game, Robert. I have been playing this game for 40 years. And I have never lost yet. The meeting was set for the following Thursday at our main office. I told Jason that some potential investors wanted to tour the facility and that I needed him there to present our current projects. He did not question it. Melissa showed up in full corporate armor, navy suit, heels, leather briefcase. She brought 2 people with her, a guy in his 30s who introduced himself as Kyle from PacWest Development, and a woman in her 50s who said she was a business consultant named Patricia. I led them into the conference room. Frank was already there, along with our senior estimator Mike and our operations manager Carlos. To anyone looking in, we were just senior employees getting ready to brief some visitors. Melissa took the lead. Thank you all for taking the time to meet with us. As I mentioned in my preliminary conversations, PacWest Development is very interested in acquiring Mitchell Construction. They see enormous potential in your brand, your client relationships, and your workforce. What they are offering is a chance to be part of something bigger, while ensuring that everyone here benefits financially. Kyle from PacWest jumped in with a PowerPoint presentation. Growth projections, market analysis, synergies, integration timelines. It was slick and professional and probably used in a dozen other acquisition pitches. When he finished, Patricia the consultant spoke up. What we need from you is a clear picture of the company's current financial status. Revenue, profit margins, debt obligations, equipment valuations, real estate holdings. Once we have that, we can put together a formal offer. Frank leaned back in his chair. And you have spoken with the ownership about this? Melissa answered before Patricia could. We are in the early stages, but we have reason to believe the ownership would be very receptive to the right offer. What reason is that? I asked. She looked directly at me. Because Robert, you are not going to work forever. And when you retire, Jason deserves to inherit something real. This sale would make that happen. There was a moment of silence. I saw Jason shift uncomfortably in his seat at the far end of the table. He had been quiet this whole time, probably still not quite sure why he was even here. I folded my hands on the table. There seems to be some confusion. Melissa, you are operating under the assumption that I am just an employee here, that I am a longtime foreman or manager who has influence but no real power. Is that correct? She hesitated, sensing a trap. I assumed you were in senior management, yes. I nodded slowly. Then, I reached into my briefcase and pulled out a document, slid it across the table to her. This is the corporate filing for Mitchell Construction, LLC, filed with the state of Oregon. It lists the ownership structure. You can see there that I own 85% of the company. Frank here owns 15%. We are the only two owners. There is no board of directors to convince, no other shareholders to negotiate with. It is just us. Melissa picked up the document, her face going pale as she read. And just to be clear, I continued, Mitchell Construction is not for sale. Not to Pac West. Not to anyone else. This company was built on trust, on relationships, on doing right by our clients and our workers. That is not something you can PowerPoint your way into understanding. Kyle from Pac West stood up quickly. I think there has been a misunderstanding. We were told that the ownership was open to discussions. You were told wrong. Patricia, the consultant, was already packing up her laptop. She had seen deals go south before and knew when to cut her losses. But Melissa was not done. She stood up, hands gripping the edge of the table. Jason has been working here for 12 years. He deserves to know what his future looks like. He deserves to be part of ownership. If you cared about him at all, you would have brought him in years ago instead of keeping him in the dark. Jason finally spoke. Melissa, Dad does not owe me anything. If he built this company, it is his to do with as he pleases. She whirled on him. Are you seriously taking his side? He has been lying to you for your entire career, letting you think you were just an employee when he could have made you a partner, letting me look like a fool while he played games. I never lied to him, I said quietly. He never asked who owned the company, and I never said I did not. That is manipulation. That is controlling behavior. You did this on purpose to test me, did not you? To see if I was good enough for your precious son. I stood up now too. Yes, Melissa, I did. And you failed. Her face went from pale to red. You are a bitter old man who cannot stand to see anyone else succeed. You are going to die alone in that empty house, clutching your company like it is the only thing that ever mattered to you. Well, congratulations. You get to keep it. But you do not get to keep Jason. She grabbed her briefcase and stormed out. Kyle and Patricia followed quickly, muttering apologies. Jason sat frozen in his chair, staring at the table. Frank and the others quietly excused themselves, leaving us alone. Finally, Jason looked up at me. How long were you going to wait to tell me? Until I knew for sure. Knew what for sure? That she was not with you for the right reasons. He shook his head slowly. You had no right to make that call, Dad. She is my wife. If you had suspicions, you should have talked to me. Would you have believed me? Silence. Jason, I built this company for you. It was always going to be yours. But I needed to know that whoever you married understood what that meant. This is not just money. It is responsibility. It is caring about the people who work for us, the clients who trust us, the community we serve. Melissa saw it as an asset to be liquidated. And if I had told you from the beginning that you would inherit all this, I would never have known the difference. So you tested her. You tested us. Yes. He stood up, his jaw tight. I need some time to think. He walked out. I sat alone in the conference room for a long time after that, wondering if I had just destroyed my relationship with my son to save a company, wondering if I had made the right call, or if I was just a controlling old man like Melissa had said. But 3 days later, my phone rang. It was Jason. Can I come over? He showed up that evening. We sat in the living room, the same spot where Melissa had pitched her acquisition scheme. For a while, we did not say anything. Then Jason spoke. I found something. After the meeting, I started going through our finances. Melissa has been moving money, taking cash out of our joint account in small amounts, transferring it to an account I did not know about. Over the past 6 months, she has moved almost $40,000. My stomach dropped. Have you confronted her? Not yet. I wanted to see where it went first. So I hired a forensic accountant. Turns out, she has been planning this for a while. The account is in her name only. And get this. She has been meeting with a divorce attorney. Jason. No, Dad. Let me finish. The attorney specializes in high net worth divorces. Melissa was building a case that you were going to retire and leave me the company, and that she was entitled to half its value in a divorce settlement. She was going to wait until after you handed it over to me, then file. That is why she pushed so hard for the sale. She wanted the cash in hand before she left. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Are you sure? He pulled out his phone and showed me emails. Messages between Melissa and the attorney. Discussions of company valuation, asset division, strategic timing. It was all there, laid out in black and white. She was never interested in building a life with me, Jason said quietly. She was interested in building an exit strategy. What are you going to do? I already filed for divorce. She does not know yet. My attorney says, because of the way she moved money and the prenup she insisted on, she is not going to get much, especially since we do not have kids yet. We sat in silence again. Then Jason looked at me. I am sorry, Dad. You were right, and I was too blind to see it. You loved her. There is no fault in that. There is when it costs you everything. She could have destroyed this company, destroyed what you built, destroyed our family legacy, all because I was not paying attention. I reached over and gripped his shoulder. But you did pay attention. When it mattered, you saw the truth. That is all anyone can ask. What happens now? I stood up, walked to my desk, and pulled out a folder I had prepared months ago. Handed it to him. This is the succession plan for Mitchell Construction. Effective immediately, you are being made a 25% partner. Over the next 10 years, as you prove yourself in a leadership role, you will gradually buy out my share until you own 85%. Frank stays at 15% until he retires, at which point his shares transfer to you. The company stays in the Mitchell family. The workers keep their jobs. The clients keep getting quality work. And you learn how to run this operation the right way. Jason opened the folder, reading through the documents. When he looked up, his eyes were wet. Why did you wait so long to give me this? Because I needed you to understand what you were inheriting. This is not just a business. It is a responsibility. To our workers, to our clients, to the community, to the Mitchell name. I needed to know you understood that. And now I do. He stood up and hugged me. We stayed like that for a long moment, the way we had not since he was a kid. When he pulled back, he wiped his eyes and smiled. So, partner, when do I start? You already did. 12 years ago. We spent the rest of that evening going over the details, talking about the future, planning the transition. For the first time in 3 years, that knot in my stomach finally loosened. The divorce was finalized 4 months later. Melissa fought hard, but the prenup held. She walked away with what she brought into the marriage, and nothing more. Jason threw himself into learning the business side of Mitchell Construction, working alongside Frank and me to understand every aspect of operations. 6 months after the divorce, we landed the biggest contract in company history, a 12-story mixed-use development in downtown Portland. Jason led the project from start to finish. It came in under budget and ahead of schedule. When the building was completed, the developer commissioned a plaque for the lobby. It read, "Built by Mitchell Construction, established 1994. 3 generations of quality craftsmanship." Jason stood next to me at the dedication ceremony, looking at that plaque. 3 generations? But it has just been you and me. I smiled. So far. But you are only 36. Plenty of time to make it 3. He laughed. And for the first time since Linda died, I felt like maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be all right. Now, 3 years after that wedding where I kept my mouth shut, Mitchell Construction is stronger than ever. Jason has grown into his role as partner, earning the respect of our workers and our clients. We have expanded into sustainable building practices, won awards for our work, and built a reputation that goes beyond Portland. And every once in a while, When we are on a job site or reviewing plans or meeting with clients, Jason will look at me and shake his head. You know, if you had just told me from the beginning that you owned the company, none of that would have happened. And I always give him the same answer. Maybe. But then you would not have learned what matters. Trust is not just given because of blood. It is earned through character. And Melissa showed her character the moment she thought there was money to be made. Better to know that before she became the mother of your children and had her hands in the business. He nods, because he knows I am right. Sometimes the best thing a father can do is stay quiet and let the truth reveal itself. I did not need to expose Melissa. I just needed to give her enough rope, and she hung herself with it. My job was not to protect Jason from making mistakes. My job was to protect what I built so that when he was ready, really ready, he could inherit something worth having. And now he has. Not just a company, but an understanding of what it means to build something that lasts. Something bigger than money, bigger than assets, bigger than quarterly earnings. A legacy. The Mitchell legacy. And it is in good hands. I still work most days, though not as hard as I used to. Jason handles more and more of the day-to-day operations. I am teaching him everything I know. All the lessons I learned the hard way over 40 years. And someday, when I am gone, he will run Mitchell Construction the right way, with integrity, with pride, with the understanding that what we build lasts long after we are gone. That is worth more than $20 million. That is worth more than any acquisition deal or strategic partnership. That is worth keeping quiet for, and I would do it again in a heartbeat.